Let's take a moment, just everyone kind of turn to your neighbor. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I see powerful goodness in you. Okay, then turn to the other neighbor and say, neighbor, I see powerful goodness in you too. All right, thank you for indulging me. And with all that powerful goodness, let's pass around a fine basket. Thank you. Thank you.
I never heard that.
Thank you, everybody. Do we have any visiting Rotarians? I'd like to recognize any of our visiting Rotarians. Any visiting Rotarians? No? Has anybody brought any guests today that we'd like to meet? Any guests today? Oh, wow, it's just us. The gang's all here. All right. So while we have everybody here, I thought I would take the time to talk about the season that we're in. I only have a few minutes, I promise you it won't be long. So in this season that we're in, we should be in this great American, time in which we all celebrate, we should be celebrating, our ability to debate, have discussion, right? And then of course, choose our leaders as we do that. Unfortunately, our season of debate tends to slide a little bit the last couple of years into a season of hate. And that's unfortunate, right? But I'd like to talk just a moment maybe about some of the stories that we're going to hear, right? So we're going to hear a lot of stories. And I'm not going to talk about those stories, but I want to be clear that the most important stories will be the stories that we tell ourselves. And I thought I'd just give some examples and maybe take just a little bit of a moment to try to get us to think about that just for a second. The stories that we tell ourselves. What's the story here?
Love.
Love, right? Right? A beautiful couple celebrating nuptials. Right? You see some other things, Arizona, some other things. Right? So the story here, this is my son and his new bride. And this is Utah, right outside of Zion National Park. And also what you don't see here there are 4 parents, and the size of this whole wedding celebration was 6 people. Well,
Is that snow in the corner?
huh?
Is that snow in the corner?
No, that's not snow. No, that's just picture stuff. But
No. In the corner.
But good observation. No, it's no snow. No. It was a beautiful day. And what you also don't see is right on the edge here, just 2 feet away, is a cliff. And that cliff drops down about 300 feet straight down. So what you don't see are the 4 parents on the side, right off the side here, quietly trying not to have heart attacks and hoping that the wind doesn't sweep our new kids off of this cliff. But a beautiful, beautiful weekend that was. What's the story here? All right, clearly a hungry Corbin about to bite into a bear claw. And so you look at that, and my new daughter-in-law on Mother's Day was like, hey, let's get this picture of Dad about to bite into this bear claw, right? But what you don't see is that I hated that bear claw. After it was full of butter. I don't like butter. If you know me, don't give me butter. I don't like it. It was full of butter. I about puked all over the whole table. Okay, it was not a good day for me as far as that butter was concerned. But I recovered quickly. And around that table were the newlyweds and the new parents joined together in a great breakfast on Mother's Day in Utah. Point here, there's a story. You got some of it you didn't get, right? What's the story here? This was one of the most intriguing conversations I have ever had with this couple as they talked about life, recovery, and resilience. As somebody battled with serious cancer and relapses, What you also don't know is we were right off the coast of Africa, near the Canary Islands. A beautiful day, on a beautiful cruise, and I was about 3 sheets to the wind. Of course, you don't see that. But one of the most intriguing stories of my life. Of course, what's the story here? Well, that's me. I'm signing a book, a guest book, for the Grifols Museum. If you know Grifols, they're an RTP. They're a global biopharmaceutical firm, very integral in my recovery, a partner in the foundation that I share. I was very honored to sign this book because they've been doing this for since 1932, I believe it was. And what a story that was for his family and the impact they've had on plasma therapeutic medications. What a wonderful story. And I was very, very happy and proud to have been there in Barcelona. So also maybe what you don't know is all of those stories, all those pictures there, is where I've been for the last few weeks, if you wonder where Corbin's been. I've been quite a few places. And my point with that is, the stories that we tell ourselves are only a version of reality. It's a human thing. We have all kinds of senses, and we have all kinds of filters that we run these encounters through. And then we tell ourselves a story about it. Well, during this season of hate, we're going to hear quite a few stories. And as that reality begins to sink in, we tend to run that against our experiences, our education, our emotions, and maybe more importantly here, a lot of other stuff. And when we do that, run through the cranks of the brain and the mind, and all you folks, a lot of you professors and all that, you're smarter than me. You know how this works. And you craft a story. Now, I can't tell you what story to craft because you've got your own experiences, your own education, your own emotions, your own triggers. But as we deal with the stories, remember this in this season of debate. Let's claim it, season of debate, right? Be mindful of the stories that you're telling yourself and filter your responses of the things that we think, say, or do through the Rotary 4-way test. Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So I'd like to leave you with that today. Thank you very much. We'll turn this over to Mike. That's
Corbin, thank you very much. That's an excellent way to lead off the meeting. Does anyone have any announcements or messages for the club? Anything? I've got, oh, sorry. Yes,
if anyone does have furniture, like dressers, beds, small sofas, mattresses, coffee tables, lamps, that you don't need, that are in good shape, I think the coordinator for Rotary Peace Fellows is going to come up here on Wednesday to pick things up and put them in the warehouse. The fellows will get here at the beginning of August, and the warehouse is pretty empty at this point. So let me know if you have anything.
just coordinate with you. Okay. All right. Linda.
Last night we had a wonderful SECU family house event. I think we had 12 or 13 Rotarians, and I think over 80 guests. And you should have seen the spread. Everybody brought, I actually took some pictures, sent them out to the club, so we got them posted on the website. But what an incredible group, and I'll tell you, the opportunity to serve those individuals is touching your heartstrings, so well done, everybody.
Thanks, Linda, and I would say, if you have not had a chance to serve at the CQ Greenway House, do it one time, because you'll do it more than one time if you do it one time. I've just got a couple announcements. We are off next week for Memorial Day, so don't come here. Go enjoy yourself. I hope you're enjoying yourself here. Don't come here to enjoy yourself. Then the following week is the installation banquet on the 27th. Thanks to Felix, a note went out about that to sign up. We have a hard copy that we'll distribute as well. No need to sign up both ways. But we look forward to that. Hope you can make it there.
I thought it was June 27th.
Yeah.
June, what did I say?
You said the following week.
June 27th. Thank you. It's been a long week. So, June 27th. But still don't show up next week here, right? Okay. Thank you. But that's all I've got. So I will bring Jim up to introduce our speaker today. Thank you, Jim.
You are going to enjoy this today. We have, is this working?
Yeah.
Sort of, okay. We have Kevin Carnero who's going to talk with us today about sports injuries. And maybe you can't hear? Is it not working?
I'm not sure.
Tilted up a little bit.
Gotta go speak it.
Tilted. There we go. I've got to learn how to handle these microphones. I appreciate the help. That's what we do. We help each other out here. Part of the Rotary spirit. But with Kevin here today, one of the things that we're experiencing is a growing awareness of how sports injuries are so common. You see on the biography there that 3.6 million people last year showed up with athletics, with sports injuries that made their way to the dock. And then we think about how many more that don't come. And I'm thinking, too, about the growing awareness that we have about things like concussions. And maybe Kevin will tell us today whether these new helmets they're experimenting with, that with all that foam that looks like COVID spurs, I can't quite figure out whether he's going to tell us maybe whether they work. But I was also thinking about our growing awareness. I was talking to Cliff Butler earlier this week about, I said, Cliff, you were an all-state football player. Nobody was worried about concussions then. Cliff said, I played football. Okay. On that note, I think you will enjoy this today. We really, we're blessed in our town with the folks who are not just experts in our community, but who are national experts in their field. And so Kevin, who is as much at home with the National Football League and all other organized sports activities as he is here in Chapel Hill at the UNC Spine Center, helping those of us who, I've been at the damn Spine Center so much I'm thinking about buying a parking space over there. And Kevin is a star in that firmament, and I'm sure you will see why if you give a really good old rousing Rotary welcome to Dr. Kevin Carnero.
It is wonderful to be here and be back. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I came and we spoke at that time a lot about the NFL and injuries. And today, what I wanted to do is speak a little bit about health. I know this is a very popular discussion. We have this great healthcare system, or two in the area, both Duke and UNC. But I really want to talk about health and give you guys some practical tips on how to make your lives healthier. And then I'm willing to take many, many questions, so feel free to ask questions along the way. So I'm, again, very fortunate to be here, and thank you, Jim, for inviting me. I know you guys do wonderful work, and we're happy to help all of you at our institution. Let's get through this. So when I was in college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. My goal in life was to be a professional soccer player. It didn't work out. I had many injuries, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I went to California to visit a family member, and at this dinner I met somebody, and she said, you need to be an osteopathic doctor. So I said, what is an osteopathic doctor? She said that an osteopathic doctor looks like a regular doctor, but you learn how the body is really well connected. It was created by a physician in Kansas named A.T. Still, and he said the body is a unit, a harmonious whole made up of mutually dependent parts. That's our body. That's what we do day to day. But that's not our healthcare system, right? In a sense. We'll talk about that in a second. But our healthcare system is sort of divided up into specialties, right? We're very specialty driven. Jim said he came to the spine center to see care. We have a spine center for back pain. But if you have a knee issue, you have to go to the knee center, right? And if you have a concussion, you go to the neurology or that center, right? And so they're all sort of divided, but we're not divided as a human being, right? Our bodies are not divided. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention. My knee, so I injured my knee. I had several surgeries on my knee when I was in high school and was going to play in college, but didn't end up playing college because of the knee injuries. They were taking care of my knee and said, probably shouldn't play soccer anymore. But no one looked at my movements. No one watched me move. No one looked at my shoulder and my hips and other parts, right, to get me back. So when I decided to do medical school, I wanted to make that a really core part of what I do. Can I prevent injuries for people? I had a great experience when I was a fellow. We took care of a really well-known pitcher, Randy Johnson, who pitched for the Mariners. And he came to Chicago and saw the attending I was working with, this really great doctor. And we're trying to figure out, why does Randy Johnson's elbow keep dropping when he pitches? And he said, well, let's look at his ankle. So the great doctor, Dr. Press, who's now at Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, said, let's look at his ankle. So we looked at his ankle, and sure enough, it wasn't moving very well. So Dr. Press said, Kevin, you do some osteopathic manipulation. Go and play with his ankle a little bit. So I did that. And his elbow wasn't dropping anymore when he pitched. All right? Really simple things, but Dr. Press was able to do that. He was able to look at the whole body as a system and make that connection. As Jim mentioned earlier, I do work in the concussion space. And I work very closely with Kevin Guskowitz, who's left our area in Michigan State. But Kevin always spoke about concussions are not just the head; they're involved more than the head, they involve the body. And I've really seen this a lot in the work I've done. There's a brain-gut connection. You guys don't know about it. It's called the enteric nervous system in the body, in the GI area. And those nerves and the chemicals that are released there are also connected to the brain. And so most concussions that happen, you'll see that they have a little bit of diarrhea, a little bit of constipation. There's definitely connection, so it's not just the brain. And so you are what you eat is a real thing that can really affect your brain health as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to say on this slide here, it's really important to have a primary care clinician, because a primary care clinician is the one looking at everything. As a specialist, we're looking at that one small thing you're seeing me for. I'm looking at the back. But there's so much more going on with you than just the back, right? So it's really, really, really important to have that one person looking at the whole body, looking at everything, and push them to it. Make them do that. Make them look at the whole body, because it's very, very important. So, Jim mentioned a little bit about injuries and neck injuries and low back injuries, and healthcare in general is very reactive. So we have a player who plays football at UNC who will injure his knee one day, and then we have to treat it. Whether he needs surgery or injection or whatnot, treat the knee. But we're very reactive to injuries, as opposed to being proactive. So instead of going to see a physical therapist for rehabilitation after injury, to me it makes sense to see a physical therapist before injury. Have them evaluate you as a whole body. Have them watch you move. Instead of taking care of sickness, let's do a better job at taking care of health, promoting health. And I think that's really, really, really important. Movement is really important. So the first thing I want to leave you guys with, I think is really important, that everyone should have a movement practice. So what does that mean? So in Eastern cultures, people do Tai Chi and yoga and movements like that. In the Middle East, the Feldenkrais is a big movement, those Israeli-derived movement. I think everyone should have that. When you guys were young, and I'll talk on the next slide, we played, right? When you guys were kids, when you think about your youth, you think about the fun times you had playing with your friends on the playground or playing a sport, but they were fun. They weren't organized, they were fun. Really simple fun. And you did lots of funny movement patterns. You played with a hula hoop and sort of we're moving around, right? Who plays with a hula hoop nowadays, right? Those sort of things promoted movement patterns. their movement, and we've lost that over time. So I think it's really important for everyone to have a movement back. So if you find Tai Chi that's fun for you, if you find dance being fun for you, those sort of things, try to find that in your lives, your day-to-day lives. I think it's important. So structured exercise versus play. We do a lot of structured exercise now. And I'm going on a soapbox a little bit, and maybe I don't know how it's perceived, but I think youth sports have been changed a lot. And the monetization of youth sports sort of ruined it for kids, not giving them a chance to lead healthy, happy lives. They feel like they have to play 5 days a week of soccer when they're 4 years old. That's not right. And we know that from the musculoskeletal standpoint, our kids are more injured than we were when we were young. And that's because we didn't specialize in a single sport till we were 14, 15, 16. And now they're forced to specialize when they're 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, right? And then they feel like they've missed the boat if they're not there. That has led to more injury. It's led to decreased social benefits of play and sport, and obviously emotional benefits. So, if possible, it'd be nice to get back to play as kids. And then for you guys, getting play as an adult is really important. So when the American College of Sports Medicine next year is going to release a statement, I've been involved in that, about what do you do during your week? So if we tell you to exercise, do 150 minutes of cardiovascular activity a week, play is going to be part of that. Okay, so it's very important to play. So whether that be tennis, I know Jim does, pickleball, golf, whatever it is that's fun for you and social, and it involves some movement or activity. Dance. Dance is one of the biggest things. So when we talk about people with Alzheimer's or preventing cognitive decline, dance is one of the first things that physicians recommend is dance. It's playful. You don't have to be good at it. You learn movement techniques that get better with time. So it doesn't matter who you are, you should dance. Okay? So you give some benefits there and some examples there. So how do we assess cognitive health in healthcare? I don't know if anybody of you had a cognitive assessment. I've had several as part of the work we do with the NFL. I feel like I have to take the tests. So I've done them. They're pretty time intensive. Typically in a healthcare institution like UNC, you see a neuropsychologist who does the testing. And we look at every part of your ability to think, essentially. Language, look at memory, executive function, how do you perceive I have 3-dimensional objects, 2-dimensional objects, etc. Attention, how attentive are you to things as you do them? And then sort of social cognition, how do you recognize emotions, insight, how's your insight, those sort of things. That's what we say it's cognitive health. There are many companies now working on computerized cognitive testing. If you haven't done that already, it's a cool thing to do. There are companies working on giving you examples of things you could do to improve your cognition. There's luminosity that was really big a few years ago. There are other things coming out like that. There's actually a new headset coming out, a virtual reality headset coming out of MIT Harvard, where they've created games that you can play through a virtual reality interface. It's called React Neuro, it's a company. I'm trying to get one here for us to use. But yeah, there are things, and that's how we assess them. And then behavioral health. And the reason I mentioned these two things, and I'm sorry, I forgot to say this, is I work with the NFL Players Association. We see former players in this area. People who play in the NFL for more than 3 years who have access to this wonderful program called Trust. We assess this with former players. We look at their emotional health. We look at the cognitive health. We look at their musculoskeletal health. We look at their internal medicine related health. These are the big things. These are the things they want to know about. These are things that they want to do well with. And one thing I will say is they're doing really well. Our former athletes, at least the ones that come through our program, do very, very well and are doing very well. Obviously, there are certain percentages that do have pretty significant issues playing contact sports, but the majority are doing very well. And then behavioral health. This has become obviously a bigger thing recently. When you guys were young, and when I was younger, it wasn't thought about. You didn't talk about your mood and your depression. You didn't talk about that. It's been more apparent with the fast pace in life. Life is much faster for the kids nowadays than it was for all of us growing up. The cell phone, the internet, all that has really led to that. And kids don't have time to think, right? They don't have time to just think and be kids and think. We're seeing more of this on the college side. For those who work at UNC, we see more of this on our campus, a lot more than before. There's no stigma, there's less of a stigma attached to this, obviously, which is a very good thing. We're not doing enough to prevent it, in my opinion. And this is allowing kids to be kids, giving them time to play and relax. And this is something we assess with our players. And so when we have players come in, we have them take surveys. We speak to their significant other who knows what's really going on. In most cases, it tends to be a wife. We ask them, the kids might say something, and let us know. But it tends to be an issue. And for former athletes who've played a sport all their lives, their identities are associated with that sport. Right? You played football since you were 5, and now you're 25 or 30. Your whole identity was associated with sport. When that goes away, life becomes a little bit difficult. You have to find yourself again. You are a superstar in your town of Roanoke Rapids. Everyone knows you. Everyone knows your name. You might have played at UNC, and everyone in Chapel Hill knows who you are. You're a big deal. They know you for football, but they don't know you. Right? So that's a really big thing that we try to work with our guys. So how do you minimize your risk of these sort of cognitive issues going forward? So with athletes, what I do when I see young athletes is talk about lifestyle changes right off the bat. So when people have cognitive issues when they get older and later in life, there are some medications that are tried. But the majority of what we prescribe is diet and exercise. It's not fancy medications like Namenda and others. It's still diet and exercise. In fact, the best studied treatments for cognitive health are exercise-based treatments. Okay, so it's really, really important to treat exercise not as a means of playing sport or whatnot, but it's part of your lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be, hey, you run for half an hour a day or walk, because if you just do half an hour of running a day, but you sit in front of a computer for 5 hours a day, there's no point of the half an hour of movement you've done in the day. Really, it's really the sustained movement throughout the day is really, really important. So getting up and moving around is much more important than the 30 minutes of exercise you do in the day. Okay? And that's why the 150 minutes a week is really important. That's what sort of American College Sports Medicine pushes. And the nutrition is really important. And what we tell our former players is not the amount you eat necessarily, but it's the quality of food you eat. You guys had very good lunch today. Thank you again for lunch. But it's the quality of food you guys eat is really, really important. So limiting some of the processed foods we think are really important. Eating real food essentially is important. And so that's what we push there.
What's real food?
Real food, eating real food, eating vegetables and fruits and meats and things that are real, not created in a factory, not heavily processed. Your body responds better to that. Your insulin level stays at a lower level if you're eating real food compared to highly processed foods. I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Toronto, and I had ketchup growing up. And then I came here, and the ketchup tasted completely different. And it's not till this summer I realized why. So in Canadian ketchup, there's no high fructose corn syrup. It's just regular sugar, I guess. You can't get regular sugar ketchup here from the big manufacturers unless they're organic or whatever. It tastes very different, and that's why. And so we need to, if our government or people above us are not helping us with food choices, we need to do that with the food choices we make. And then use of healthcare. So we tell our young athletes to see a doctor, like get your checks, regular checks done regularly. It's important to be able to utilize healthcare and know how to navigate healthcare. The former players who play in the NFL, they've been sort of walked through healthcare during elementary school, high school, college, and professionally. Somebody's there to take them. They have an athletic trainer in high school and college who've taken them to their appointments, who've made the appointments for them. When they play in the NFL, the doctors come to them. They're all there in their facility to see them. They don't know how to utilize healthcare. And so we've taught them, we've taken them to clinics, and this is how you check in, this is how you sign a HIPAA release, this is how you do that. They didn't know how to do that. Now they're learning to be an adult, in that sense, in their 30s, 20s, and 30s later on. So getting our kids to understand how to navigate the healthcare system, which is very complicated. I personally am not great at navigating the healthcare system entirely, but it's really important to start that healthcare literacy early on as well. And then I wanted to talk a little about the role of meditation. So when I was in medical school between first and second year, My first year was great. I was doing really, really well. My grades were great. And then one day I was just driving, I got a panic attack. I was doing well. It came after a stressful anatomy exam, did very well in the exam. Somehow I had a panic attack. I didn't know why. So I went to see my primary care doctor in my medical school in Philadelphia. He said, here's a medication to take. He gave me Ativan or something like that. I don't remember what it was. I don't want to take a medication. Like I said, why do I need to take a medication? I said, what else is out there? Because there's nothing else out there. Just take your medication. And so I wanted to make a search myself. And I had somebody recommend a silent meditation retreat. So between first and second year, so a month later, I went to outside Boston. I did a 2-week meditation retreat where I couldn't speak for 2 weeks, silent. This is going on maybe 20 years ago. It was life-changing. It was phenomenal. I was very difficult. The first 5-6 days, I struggled. I mean, how can you not talk, right? For 5-6 days. Very, very difficult. I was sitting in silence, walking in silence, listening to their talks in silence. Couldn't react to it. Really struggled. It was also a time, it was in the fall. It was in the spring, and there were tons of black flies in the area, so I was getting bitten like crazy because we're outside in this area. And I had to deal with itching and all that during the experience. Those last 5-6 days was blissful. I got it. I figured out what true silence meant. So like, be quiet, try to quiet your mind, try to understand yourself really well. It was amazing. I took a bus from Boston to New York and arrived in Grand Central Station. Dropped me in front of Penn Station. Dropped me at Penn Station. I walked into Penn Station during the rush hour traffic. It was crazy. I started crying. I stood there and started crying because I couldn't handle the amount of input that I was getting. That's regular input. That's input we get every day, right? That regular input. I couldn't handle that because I was in silence for so long. It turns out my roommate, we stayed with a roommate. My roommate during that whole 2 weeks, we didn't get to talk to the last day, was the dean of the medical school at Harvard. And he said, you're going to be a really good doctor because you learned how to do this. I don't know if I'm a really good doctor, but I learned how to do it. And so I think there's 2 things I want to convey here. One, there's meditation, and then the concept of mindfulness. So meditation, to me, it incorporates everything related to this. And it doesn't matter what religion you are or non-religious. It doesn't matter. I'm Catholic, I grew up Catholic. In our Catholic faith, we pray the rosary. To me, that's meditation. Right? You're meditating that way. In a Buddhist philosophy or faith, you're sitting and chanting, and that's meditation. So having those times of silence where you're getting to listen and reflect to yourself, I think is really important. And then there's mindfulness. That's being aware of what you're doing when you're doing it. So the whole day can be meditative. You're listening to a talk, you're watching me and listening to me, but not like thinking about the grocery list that you have to get. You're driving home, you're actually focused on the driving you're doing, not listening to the radio or listening to talking on the phone, right? You're mindful to what you're doing at the time. If you just have moments of mindfulness, life is going to be much better. And I'll tell you, during transitions, when you're transitioning between here today and getting into your car, just be aware of what you're doing during your transitions. If you just do this during transitions, it'll be much, much, much better for you. Okay? So we do this with our athletes. It's hard getting some of our high-level athletes to want to meditate or be mindful, but we do it, and we work hard on it. And I do it with a lot of former NFL players. When they come here, I've had sessions with them where I sit down with them. I've got really well-known meditators in the country who've worked with them and helped them through the process, and it's made a big, big difference. So highly recommend it. So number 1 was having a movement practice. Number 2, I think some form of meditation would help all of us. And I'm talking about this, but have I been meditating every day recently? No. I've fallen off the bandwagon, so this is a reminder for me to get back on. And then sleep. So sleep is extremely, extremely, extremely important. And we understand the value of sleep only recently, to be honest. In the last 10 years, we've discovered 12 years now, I guess, a system in the brain called the lymphatic system. Have any of you heard of the lymphatic system? It's essentially a waste. It's a way to get rid of the waste products in your brain. It only happens at night. It only happens when you sleep several cycles at night. It's very, very important. It flushes out your waste products in the brain. Some of the thought now on neurodegenerative diseases and tauopathies, CTE is a common thing that we talk about, is the accumulation of proteins in the brain. So we're thinking now maybe some of it's because we don't sleep well at night. We're not allowing the brain to flush out these products. Okay? So sleep is really, really, really important. We're doing a study now with the glymphatic system, with the military right now, where we're looking at devices now that measure the glymphatic system, not invasively, but non-invasively, and then systems that treat the glymphatic system by pushing fluid in the brain. There's some amazing companies in the West Coast that have created these products that we're going to study. So I think that's important. So sleep is important for the glymphatic system. It's important for emotional regulation, brain homeostasis, and then simulation and preparation for life. How many times have you guys had an experience where you dreamed something based on something you were thinking about the day before? Whether it be a speech that you guys had to give, or a big meeting that you had coming up, or a tennis match you had coming up. You're sort of dreaming about it. Well, it's not done, that's not coincidence. Right? Our brain is doing that purposely to prepare for the next day. When I was doing a little bit more work with our basketball team, I would talk to some of the players about practice your free throws in your head before you go to bed. Like do something where you do that regularly. Like go through the motion, go through the process. Kids, when they're born or they're young, at 1 year old, they don't know how to walk like that, right? They've watched it. They've watched it and they've watched it, and their brain has sort of done this simulation of what walking looks like over and over and over again until they get it. Okay? And so that's really important. So sleep is important for simulation. And then we talk about what treatments do you do for sleep. So I'm not a sleep specialist, and I've spoken to a bunch of neurologists about this, and when they tell me that the medications that we use are not wonderful. And so what else can we do for sleep? Sleep hygiene tends to be a thing, if you guys have heard about sleep hygiene. It tends to be do something before you go to bed every day, or every morning when you wake up to simulate your sleep. So the couple things we tell people to do. Go to bed at the same time every night, and wake at the same time every morning. You're creating that circadian rhythm in your brain, like going to bed, sleep at the same time every night, doing the same thing in the morning. We do with our kids. Like we make our 5-year-olds go to bed at 8 o'clock or 8:30, whatever it is, every time, right? We make them up in the morning to go to preschool or school or whatnot, right? We do that with kids. We also read our kids a bedtime story or say a prayer with them or do a massage. We do something with kids when they're young, but we forget about that as adults. But that actually stimulates their sleep, and as that would be for us. So have a routine before you go to bed every night. Whether it be a shower before you go to bed, reading a book, just something not overly stimulating that can be helpful for all sleep. Do the same routine every day. And then during the day, and hopefully there are no dermatologists in the room, I tell people to get sunlight. Get outside during the day and get some sunlight. Because we know when sunlight hits the back of our eyes, hits the back of our retina, it suppresses some hormones, it increases some other hormones that prepares you well to sleep at night. Okay, so sunlight and exercise in the sunlight would be ideal because you have benefit of exercise and some sunlight in the day. Okay, so sleep. Third point, sleep is very important. Sleep has a huge effect on healing. And when we talk about concussions, I make sure sleep is the primary thing I do with them, so they get good sleep at night. So getting back to basics, movement I think is really important. We talked about that. Everyone should have a movement practice. Play, again, is really important. Sleep, good food. And the last thing I didn't say is socialization, which clearly you guys do a good job of here. So I don't need to tell you guys about socialization. I appreciate it. It's very, very good for you, and you guys are doing a great job. So I wanted to just shift for just a couple of minutes, talk about what I've been doing and what I'm going to be doing going forward. And I realized that I love helping patients. That's why I went to medicine. It's not to make a lot of money. I wouldn't choose to go to UNC, an academic practice, and I wanted to be extremely wealthy. But it's really to help patients. That's why I went to medicine. But I realized I'm limited. I could see one patient at a time. One patient every 15 minutes, half an hour, right? And so I wanted to find a way to help more patients. And I realized in the process of taking care of patients, I don't know the answers to everybody. So I see somebody with a concussion that I might not have seen this case before, but there's somebody in the country who's seen this case before, and it's helped this kind of patient, where I can't do that. So I was telling the story, so those who belong to the farm, our kids used to swim at the farm and do activities there, and there was a dad there, and I was telling this quandary I had. I said, I want to help people, but I can't help everybody I see, Sometimes I get good cases, sometimes I get poor outcomes. How can I do better? So this seems like a math problem, right? Can we sort of find a way to phenotype patients, figure out flavors of patients, figure out what treatments work best for them, and give that to everybody to use? So we formed a little startup called Heads Together Health. We're putting our heads together, patients putting their heads together, everyone's putting their heads together to help patients. And what we're doing now is we're looking at data. So we're getting data from outcomes of patients. And we're using what's popular now is machine learning, artificial intelligence. And Anthony is my co-founder, is a PhD in that. And trying to feed that back to clinicians in real time to help patients. So that's what we're doing. And it's been fun. And the process of doing that, I've learned a lot about technology in healthcare. So I want to talk a little bit about where technology is going in healthcare, so you guys understand that a little bit better. So we have much more improved imaging modalities than we did before. I mean, immensely improved from the time I started in healthcare practice till now. Improved imaging modalities. The trouble with that, though, we're still relying on us as clinicians and radiologists to read these fancy images. And I think, and you'll see this in Europe and Japan and other, many other countries where they're using artificial intelligence to read some of this. I hope we get there. It'll help our practice and our diagnosis significantly more. We're using robotics now. So we built a brand new surgical tower at UNC. We have robots helping with a bunch of the surgeries that are being done. I know my colleagues using the spine and other areas. That's pretty cool. And it's very effective, and it's helping a lot. I think we're going to get to a point where we use biosensors. We're going to have biosensors in our bodies. I've seen some of the early developments of biosensors, where they can measure your red blood cell level, your glucose level, your oxygenation in your blood through invasive or non-invasive biosensors. They can tell you when you need to stand up because you've been sitting too long and seeing changes in your spine, right? I think we're going to get to the point where we're going to be wearing biosensors. And we're not going to need to go to see a doctor regularly because those biosensors and the feedback from the data from that, it's going to be at home. And the doctors will get that on their computer and will make adjustments to that. So I think that's coming, and it's kind of exciting. It's a lot of data to put in, but with artificial intelligence and machine learning, I think it'll be really helpful. I think it'll make us healthier, and so that's what I'm seeing coming down the pipeline. I want to share that with you guys because I know you guys are on the sort of cutting edge of speaking to people and seeing things, and maybe looking at companies and technology. But I think it's coming. We're just behind it from a healthcare perspective, but it's definitely coming. So I put some of those things there. And the last thing I said there is clinic, hospital, nursing care at home. That's a big push now, to have hospital at home type things where you set up your home environment with tools and people coming in and out. I think that's also a trend. We're seeing sort of nursing homes not meet the level of the standards that need to be done to help patients as much. And so having that at home, I think will be something in the future. So again, I put some take-home messages there. Hope those are helpful. I appreciate it being here. I appreciate being with you guys today, and happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Raise your hand or stand up, and we've got microphones throughout the room that we can
Stand up when you talk.
stand up when you talk.
Stand up when you. There we go.
Hi, I have 3 grandsons, and their parents, as well as our grandparents, struggle with screen time.
Yeah.
What do you see the future of these children who, first of all, they need to have the skills, or they're already behind at school, but screen time?
Yeah, it's a huge struggle. I have 3 kids. One's a junior in high school, going to be senior. One's almost a freshman, and one's a middle schooler. And my wife and I spoke about this really early on when they were young. I think a lot of screen time prevents them from having a quiet time, which I think is really important. And if you guys think back to shows, 20, 30 years ago, Cosby Show, Andy Griffith Show, think about those shows. They worked they moved very slowly. Like you had a whole scene of narration and discussion, and then it moved to the next one. But now these shows move so fast, so it sort of minimizes the kids' attention. I don't think it's a good idea. And if you look at healthcare or executives of technology companies, none of their kids are allowed to be on screens. So I have friends who've worked at Facebook and Google, and they were one of them is the executive at Google. His kids aren't allowed to. at screens at all. So why are we? Like, why are our kids looking at screens, right? So I would say limit screen time as much as you can, and I think our school system is doing a disservice by having so much screen time. It's not, I don't think it's good. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Ben Franklin was famous for having a first suite. Ben Franklin was famous for having a first sleep each night, getting up and reading for a while, and then having a second sleep. We have a debate at my house about whether or not my habit of doing that is healthy or if I should just wait till I fall back to sleep. What do you think?
That's a great question. I don't have a great answer. I'll tell you, I grew up in a culture where my parents will nap every afternoon, and they've done it for years. We visited countries where they have siestas in the afternoon. They have a big lunch, have a siesta, go back to work, and go home, have a small dinner, and then go to the big end. They seem to be really happy and healthy. I don't know enough about the second sleep in that sense, if they're sort of subsequently done. I do know that we need several sleep cycles at night in order to get the benefit of the lymphatic system. You just don't get it if you have one sleep cycle. So you won't get that with a nap, you'll get it with your sleep at night. So it's important to have that lengthy sleep at night. I know in our concussion population, when kids have too many naps, or people have too many naps and they don't get that good quality sleep at night, they don't recover as quickly. It's really important to get the nighttime sleep. Ben Franklin was a smart dude, so, but yeah, I hope that answers.
Two short things. My primary physician signed us up for Senior Alliance, or some kind of thing that the doctors sign up for. I haven't really seen that much difference. I don't know if you know anything about that. The main thing I wanted to say was I play pickleball, and I noticed that hardly anybody wears any eye protection, but I sometimes the ball will come off the paddle and go right to my face, so I've been wearing eye protection every time, and optometrist said he knew one guy that almost lost his sight because of pickleball, so I don't know I don't know what we could do to get people to do that.
No, I haven't seen that specific injury, but it makes sense to wear eye protection. With most sports, you can't recover from that very quickly. So I agree. I have seen 2 concussions in pickleball. One with one of the best pickleball players in the world. She had a fall on pickleball and a concussion. And another one where their partner took a racket, whacked them in the head. So please don't whack anyone in the head. I think pickleball is a great sport. I think, though, I would push working on balance and those movements, before you go into a pickleball sort of environment, because I think that's important. But keep doing what you do.
Hey, thank you. We are all inundated with these ads from the Ozempics of the world, promising better health and living. What do you think about these drugs?
I'll be honest, I'm not an endocrinologist and an expert there. I've met and chatted with my colleagues who are. Clearly, they've created weight loss significantly. One of my colleagues, I don't know if you know Jana Rubin, who's a really well-known bone health specialist at UNC. She told me the other day that we're seeing a lot of muscle weight loss, muscle loss as well. And when you lose muscle, that muscle pulls on bone to create bone. And what she thinks is there's going to be an epidemic of osteoporosis coming from it. So I don't have a great answer. Some rapid weight loss is really important for health, though. Some people need it for cardiovascular health, GI health, and others. So it makes sense for certain patients. I'm not sure if it makes sense for everybody, but there'll be more to the story. Lots of data being run here, and we'll know more in the next couple of years for sure.
You mentioned in your overview that there are cycling injuries. Are you seeing those as automotive impact injuries, or your loss of balance injuries? What's your general?
Did you say what kind of injuries? Sorry, I missed that.
Bicycling.
Bicycling injuries. Did I talk about bicycling injuries? Sorry.
Well, it's in your paper here.
Oh, okay.
You didn't talk about it, but I'm just curious as to what do you see in your practice as bicycling injuries? Because we have a lot of automotive strikes here.
Sure.
And so that's under regulation. And so forth, but are you seeing people as they recycle in older age, are they losing their balance and falling?
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah, I have seen some cycling injuries. I'll be honest, in Chapel Hill, I haven't seen as much as when I was in Chicago. I was at Northwestern on the lakefront. It gets really windy there. It's right on the lake. We had several injuries right on the lake. There was a physician I worked with actually had a spinal cord injury with the breeze pushing him down when he was cycling down. I think, as you said earlier, regulation, having lanes. I think it's a wonderful exercise. As we get older, too, it's also a wonderful exercise. People with spine conditions tend to have more issues with what's called lumbar stenosis. Well, lumbar stenosis does really well with cycling. Really well, because that flex position actually takes pressure off the nerves in your back, and so people do really well. My mentor, who's, I told you, hospital specialist surgery now, he biked across the country to raise money for pediatric disease. He was able to do it with stenosis because he could cycle.
And I just want to say this is an absolutely excellent presentation. Is there any chance we can get a copy of your slides?
Yeah, it's here on the computer here. So you have it, yeah.
Kevin, I wanted to, I don't think I need it. I just wanted to ask about the meditation and like with the sleep hygiene, you said at least 10 plus or try 10 plus. Is that the standard, or I mean, can you do 5 or
5 hours of sleep?
No, I'm sorry, meditation, like 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Like when does meditation really start?
Oh, that's a great question.
Any kind of.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll tell you the high-end practitioners of meditation always say 40 minutes is like their number that they want to get to. I don't think you need, just start with 5 minutes, right? Just start small and just do it multiple times a day and see if you can increase that number. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Even 10 minutes when you're starting up is not easy. There's lots of great resources in this area for meditation. There are groups that meet together. There's a Buddhist temple, a couple of Buddhist temples in this area that are really good at it. It doesn't have to be religious, so I want to say that it doesn't have to be religious at all. It can be helpful.
So, in a nutshell, how would you do 5 minutes of meditation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's 2 ways of doing it. One is a guided meditation, where somebody's telling you what to do when you're doing it. So they'll say maybe focus on your breathing first. Breath is a really primary form of meditation. So focus on your breath, whether it be through your nose, your belly. Focus on breath, but guided, somebody is talking through that, and you can get apps and things to do that. And then there's non-guided meditation, where you're just sitting there and sort of just hearing sounds, seeing lights, open your eyes, focus on what's around you. I used to take the train every day in Chicago, over an hour. I would meditate for half the time, breathe together half the time. It would be great. So, yeah.
Can you expand more on why bicycling is good for people with lumbar stenosis?
Yeah, because in that flex position, you're taking pressure off the nerves. And it's an extended position where you're standing and walking, where you're putting more stress on those spinal nerves as they exit out the frame. And so it tends to be an exercise that's really well tolerated. Even walking on a treadmill with an incline, people tend to do better than flat with stenosis. Yeah.
All right, thanks for the presentation. Speaking about meditation, my question is, how can we introduce that to our kids?
Yeah.
So, for example, I took my kids to the deep garden. I have 2 children, 7-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy. We got to this water fountain, and it was dripping water, making noise. I was like, just listen to that fountain and don't listen to any other thing. And it was very difficult for them to do.
No, for sure. No, it's great. So the way we did it with our kids, we did 2 things. One is we got an app, essentially, that does a children's meditation. I played it for them before they went to bed every night. They got used to it. They missed that lady's Australian voice in her accent. So that's 1. 2, we sent our kids to a children's meditation camp in the area in Chapel Hill. And they do a camp every year where they're playing with other kids, and it's religious in a sense. But yeah, we've done that. And then, I don't know, I've tried to do it. I'm not doing a good job of it. Is like practicing in front of them so they see me doing it. But I haven't done a good job of that, so I didn't want to.
Thank you. I want to be respectful of your time because I know you have to get out, but I want to say thank you so much. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you all, and have a wonderful weekend. I hope it doesn't rain too much. Get out while you can.